Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today I want to take an in-depth look at Ultron Pym, the Giant Man uniform that we got, the only 750 crystal uniform that we got, and frankly, a very strong addition to the Universal Villain class, especially for new and intermediate players who do not have the ability to build up the Black Order. I think this character is going to be great, and for the majority of this video, for the comparison's sake, I'm going to be referencing the other Tin Man himself, regular Ultron. And if you recall, a few months back, Ultron got a rework that made him a lot stronger. He got 2 new iframes, he had a new 4th skill that also gave him a self buff, and it gave him and his clones a guard hit, 5 hit for 5 seconds. And a lot of people, I think majority of the community, loved the Ultron rework. So I want you guys to remember how you felt about that Ultron rework, because I'm here to say that this Ultron Pym uniform is better. It's actually better. The survivability is a little bit worse than the Ultron because he doesn't have that guard hit for 5 seconds, and he doesn't have the extra iframe, but he trades that for 4 seconds of immunity, which is not really 4 seconds of immunity, but we'll talk about it. It's kind of like a 4-second iframe, but he also gets a huge damage boost. And I have a rank 152 Ultron Pym, so I think I have a pretty good idea of how good the character can be, and he can definitely clear stage 20 and up Shadowland stages for you, so he'll be very flexible and successful, but especially flexible because anything that you do to improve this character, especially things that aren't tied specifically to the uniform, so I'm talking about ISO 8 set, Uru, and Obelisk, they will translate onto this one, because none of that is specific to Universal Villains, of course. And so you'll be able to technically have 2 characters, a combat hero and a universal villain. But make no mistake, get nothing wrong. This is the one to have by far. So as far as the actual character goes, we have a change, quite a large change from the other characters. So we're just going to talk about it as if it's a brand new character, because there's almost nothing the same. Basically, the only skill that you're going to recognize is his 3rd skill. He does a little fidget spin, and he punches with his fists out. Kind of like Titania's, the beginning of Titania's 5th skill. But the very essence of the Ultron Pym is, of course, the clones. So we'll start with the 4th skill, which gives you the clones. It's the exact same stats as Ultron, 40% of his for 10 seconds. But he additionally gives himself an all-defense super armor buff, which is beautiful. That super armor buff you can have up all the time, so he technically does not need guard break immunity on an Obelisk. But this skill, in addition to summoning, also does damage. So this is where Ultron Pym takes over and kind of surpasses Ultron, the OG Ultron, for damage, because all of his skills deal damage rather than Ultron's 5th skill just being the one where he kind of floats up, points, and summons the clones. You're getting 2 things happening. The clones come out, and he does a pretty awesome roar with a beam attack. His 5th skill is the 4 seconds of immunity, but because the skill has a really long animation, you're almost wasting all 4 of those seconds. You waste about 3 to 3.5 seconds of the 4 seconds immunity actually going through the animation. You don't want to cancel the skill because it's got great damage and it's got a huge AoE, but you just have to keep in mind that you're not going to have 4 seconds of immunity once the skill is done. You'll have 1.5 if you're lucky, or if you have max attack speed. Then he has an iframe on his 1st skill, so it's nice to kind of go between 5 and 4 with his 1st skill. And then his 2nd skill is just damage. His 2nd skill is actually quite bad, but you know, nobody's perfect. But because you have such a short cooldown on all of these skills, you know, at 50% skill cooldown, this is 7 seconds, this is 6.5, this is 2.5. You can very safely spam, you know, 5-1-4-1, 5-1-4-1 kind of thing, and you can be almost immune most of the time, and you don't take too much damage. But you have to be pretty careful, and you do need to have very close to 50% skill cooldown. But he does still get hit even with those. But that is the kind of juicy part of the new uniform and all of the buffs and all of the changes to the skills that he gets. As far as the build, as far as what I would do, definitely physical attack and HP Urus are the way to go, because both of those things will affect the clones, the summons that you get. Keep in mind, crit rate, crit damage, stuff like that don't affect the clones. Attack speed doesn't affect the clones, they just punch and kick. So you don't want necessarily to invest too heavily in that unless you're expecting to see a lot of damage return from his other skills, not his clones. His clones will also probably die quite a bit faster than Ultron's clones, if we're comparing the two, because Ultron can give his clones that 5 guard hit, which matters a lot. But they might still surprise you because this Ultron has a lot more HP, being a combat type natively, and then also from having a uniform that you're probably going to want to mythic for that CTP selector, which, by the way, guys, I still have in my inventory. I still haven't chosen anything yet. What do I do? So going back to the build, I think that an offensive set is good. I think Hawk's Eye can work for him, although it may not be necessary given how much skill cooldown you have on your cards, but I believe he doesn't have skill cooldown on any of his gears. Yeah, he doesn't have skill cooldown on any of his orange stats, so Hawk's Eye actually does work, and it's a little bit better than you might think because it also gives him the dodge, which he can use, but also the HP Uru, which affects the clone. So Hawk's Eye is actually pretty decent for him, but you can also make the case for Power of Angry Hulk and Overdrive. That's definitely a possibility. As far as defensive sets go, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but you could go for something like Stark Backing or Binary Power, although I'd prefer Binary Power if I were you. For the Obelisk, I think a CTP of Transcendence is very good. I think Loki is probably the #1 character that I would recommend a CTP of Transcendence for, but if you're going to build up this character's uniform to Mythic anyways, it might not be a bad idea if you have some lying around, if you're not a big fan of Hellstorm or Clea or some of these other characters that have clones. I think the CTP of Transcendence is ideal for those types of characters who can take advantage of summons. Whereas the CTP of Patience would be better for guys like Corvus or Ebony, who have more damage and more value because that dodge keeps them alive for longer. So for this really quick test in Shadowland to show you guys just how much stronger he is, we're going to be comparing Ultron Pym on stage 1 with no leadership, so he's going to be using his own leadership, which is 30% HP, and he's rocking just under 20,000 physical attack, 19,900. Now, on the flip side, we're going to be comparing him, of course, to his predecessor, the Ultron. And this Ultron, because he doesn't have a mythic uniform, and I have to kind of try to even out the stats as much as I can, or give them in favor of the underdog, in this case Ultron Prime, he's going to be using his 24% Sentry Army leadership. With that said leadership, he's rocking almost 22,000 energy attack. So we're looking at a difference of 2,000 points right now, and I have a rank 197 Ultron, so it's a very close comparison. Now, of course, he doesn't have a CTP, but he does have a pretty well developed kit. Otherwise, he's got, you know, a stage 6 ISO 8 set Power of Angry Hulk. He's got 4-star matching Uru, so he's definitely no slouch. I didn't underdevelop him. It's just the uniform is rare because I never really needed to upgrade it. And frankly, if you got a new upgrade for a new uniform, I would love that. But let's jump into a new stage. We're just going to pause it as soon as one character on the enemy team dies. Just to make it easier here, we're going to be going up against Punisher and Blade at the beginning because they have no iframes, so there's not going to be any chance of shenanigans or kind of missing your attacks, whiffing. And we're going to take in the underdog first. This is Ultron, main guy, and if you liked the Ultron buff, remember, everybody, or for the most part everybody, most people thought that the Ultron buff was good enough. Granted, it was free, so I don't necessarily like comparing the two that much, but comparing a 750 uniform that gives this much of a buff to a rework, and given the fact that the uniform is still better than the buff, I think it's pretty justifiable. So we're going to get the kill here. It took us about 16, let's call it 15 seconds to kill Punisher. Quite a bit of time. The clones did attack Blade a little bit, that's why he's at about half health, so we do have to kind of count that. So in total, I did about 640, let's say 650, let's just round up, 650,000 damage in 15 seconds. That's pretty good. Over 1 million damage in 15 seconds. Not bad for Ultron with, you know, 22,000 energy attack, and he can definitely go higher than that once you build everything out. But now, let's take a look at the new and improved Ultron. The Ultron Pym. And if you weren't already getting his uniform for the CTP selector, now might be a good test to see if you really like what he's bringing to the table. Oh, I actually missed. I actually canceled the iframe on the first kill. But there you go. Boom. 9 seconds. 8.5, 9 seconds. Blade has a little bit more health than before, but I did about 600,000 damage, plus all the damage that I just did to Hulkbuster, but we're going to ignore that. 600,000 damage, almost as much damage as Ultron did. I'm not even going to say it's the same damage, but over 600k in 9 seconds. So that's a difference of 7 seconds. I was rounding a little bit in favor of the old Ultron, but I would say that he's dealing at least, 30 to 40, possibly even 50% more damage, and that's with less physical attack. And keep in mind, when we're comparing these characters as well, given my cards, I actually have better physical attack stats. Actually, I do have a little bit better energy attack stats, but they're very close, 23 to 31. My old card stats were more in favor of physical attack than energy. But even with that small difference of about 8% or 7.5%, Ultron Pym is still crushing it compared to his old kind of master. So let me know what you guys think of the new Ultron. Let me know how you've built him up, and if you think that it's a worthy upgrade for the character, for the Giant Man character, and if you think the comparison to Ultron is fair, or if you think I should have done a different comparison. I thought it would be quite entertaining to do one, considering that they play in very similar ways, get the clones out, then attack. But I am very satisfied with this uniform, and I think this one was priced correctly, and it gives us enough value in return for what it does and how much it costs. And I think the Wasp uniform and the Ant-Man uniform could probably take a couple of tips from this one, and maybe the devs could as well. But hit me up in the comments below, let me hear your thoughts, and of course, subscribe if you enjoy the content and you want to support me, hit the bell if you don't want to miss any of my videos, and of course, if you like what you see, I hope to see you again tomorrow. Take care.